I say hi to Nora.
There you go.
All right. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the March meeting of Central Park United Neighbors. It's been a while. We haven't had one of these since January. We're back after taking February off to host 2 candidates forums for the upcoming municipal election. My name is Jeff Horsfall. I'm the president of CPUN, and I'm glad you're here with us tonight. If you don't know much about our organization, CPUN is the Registered Neighborhood Organization, or RNO, for the Central Park community in Denver and Aurora. We are here to facilitate dialogue and create awareness around opportunities to engage on topics of importance to this community. We help people to find their way into a process so that resident questions, concerns, and ideas for a better community can be addressed in a constructive and inclusive way. We promote public service, civil civic discourse, and collective efficacy. At monthly meetings like this one, and through the work of our 6 working committees, CPUN facilitates the discussion of key issues with neighbors, engages in proactive problem avoidance, and amicable problem solving. CPUN is committed to providing an inclusive and welcoming environment for all members of our community. We are an all-volunteer board of your neighbors and a registered 501c3. Tonight's agenda, Brian, if you don't mind moving, as usual, we'll have our outreach hour followed by our board hour. Our board hour is public and you are welcome to stay on the call if you're interested. For the outreach hour, we'll welcome back our committee updates as well as our community partner updates. I want to send a special thank you to our community partners who haven't been with us for a long time due to a bunch of scheduling conflicts. I'm happy to have all of you back here this evening to share what's going on with your organizations. And we have a very special guest with us tonight from the Office of Social Equity and Innovation, Dr. Aisha Rousseau, who is the city's Chief Equity Officer. She will be with us tonight to talk a little bit about the work of her office, some of the impact that they've been having, and of course, ways that residents can get involved or get engaged with her work. Looking forward to that. And we will wrap up with public comment before going on to our board meeting, which is relatively light this evening. We'll talk about our committee reports as usual. A couple of activities updates. One, a review of our candidates forums, as well as a discussion on how to proceed with an additional set of candidates forums should there be a runoff following the April 3rd election. We'll also talk about recruitment activities around joining the board. We have a vote on a motion from the INC, and then which is the Inter-Neighborhood Cooperative Group. It's sort of a group of different RNOs that work together. And then finally, a treasurer's report from our treasurer, Brian Penny. Next slide, please. You saw me mention, or you heard me mention that we are recruiting new members to our board. We do have several open seats right now, and we need people who want to join the board and want to maintain Central Park's kind of sense of community and support our mission. Board members, if you're interested in learning more, are specifically expected to attend our regular monthly meetings, which are always held on the 3rd Tuesday of every month, and then serve in either a leadership role or lead a committee or be a member of a committee. And we'll talk, you can hear a little bit about what our committees do later this evening. We will be publishing the slate for the community on April 16th. That gives us 30 days before our May annual forum, during which time the community will have the opportunity to vote on that slate. So we'll need to schedule things fast if you're interested in joining the board. Please do feel free to reach out to us at centralparkunitedneighbors@gmail.com to learn a bit more. And then if I'm actually going to, yeah, sorry, Brian, I think we missed a slide here. I want to go back to our CPUN committee updates. Does any of our working committees have anything they'd like to share during the outreach hour? Again, that's your opportunity to say, share any activities that you're working on that people on the call here might want to participate in. Anything? All right, we can move on to the next portion of the agenda, which is our community partner updates. And we will start, as always, with Denver Police Department and Lieutenant Hines. Welcome back, Lieutenant Hines.
Hey, thanks, Jeff, and thanks so much for having us again tonight. Just to check real quick before I go, is everybody hearing my audio okay? Are we good there?
Yep, sound great.
Okay, great. I'm glad that's working now. So I just want to give kind of an update on some of the issues we're seeing with crime right now, and also wanted to recap some information that came out from our crime strategy briefing in the community last week. I was talking to Carol Hunter this week, and she said that she thought some of that information would be of interest to the group here, and I agree with her, so I'd like to make sure we share that. To give you an idea from a police perspective in District 5, the area that is part of Sector 1 that I'm responsible for includes all of the Central Park neighborhood, and it consists of 2 police precincts. Precinct 511 is everything north of I-70. Precinct 512 is everything south of I-70. The most pressing crime issues we're seeing at the moment, auto thefts are up throughout the district, throughout the city, and throughout the region right now. That's something I've kind of beat the drum hard on at the last few meetings. It continues to be an issue that we're trying to get on top of. To give an idea of some of the things we've done to try to address that recently, we have run a number of bait car operations. What we do in those operations is partner with Colorado Metro Auto Theft Task Force to put out a vehicle that has basically electronic controls in it. So we put the vehicle out in a public spot. We lock the vehicle like any other citizen would lock their vehicle. And in the event that somebody breaks into it, we get an immediate notification and can start having our officers head that way. If the person starts a car and starts driving off with it, we can shut the vehicle down and take them into custody. So we worked closely with some of our partners up at the Northfield Mall area to really hone in on a particular row in the shopping area where it seemed like they were getting hit hardest with auto thefts. And we recently put one of our bait vehicles out there and had it stolen within 3 hours. So that gives kind of an idea of the scope of the problem, especially when it comes to Kias and Hyundais, in terms of how frequently they're being stolen. We did make an arrest out of that case, so hopefully that leads us in some better directions in tracking down those crimes. But we're continuing to work with businesses out there and use our resources to try to get on top of that problem. However, for anybody who does own one of the more frequently stolen vehicles, please feel free to reach out to our station because we do have some steering wheel clubs available. And you can always check with our community resource officers and see if we can get you one of those. Just to give you an idea, in the hardest hit area we're seeing right now for auto thefts is precinct 511. And the areas that are being hit the hardest are around Northfield Mall and kind of east of there out to about Central Park Boulevard. In the past year, we're up about 100% on auto thefts there. So not a statistic we like to see, but it is something we're working hard to try to get a hold of. The other big pattern we're seeing right now is that burglaries are up significantly in precinct 511. They're up 100% in the last 28 days and 32% year to date. Now, ordinarily I talk about garage burglaries, and we're certainly going into the season for that. I will point out that of the 16 burglaries we had in the last 28 days in precinct 511, only 4 of those burglaries were residential burglaries, and all of those residential burglaries were open garage doors. Ordinarily, we see about 80% of our burglaries are residential burglaries, and usually, again, mostly to open garages. In this case, though, the primary driving factor for our burglaries are business burglaries. In the past 28 days, 2 of the burglaries we had were inside jobs where it was former employees. 2 of them were marijuana facility burglaries. 2 were construction site burglaries. And then the remainder composed of a couple of citywide patterns we're seeing that we're trying to get on top of. So most of the burglaries right now are business burglaries, but I have to emphasize that all of the residential burglaries have been open garage burglaries. So moving on from the issues we're seeing of current crime trends, just to talk a little bit about some of the things that Carol pointed out to me that would be of interest, just some of the things we're looking at citywide. Chief Thomas joined us at our meeting last week, And he was pointing out a couple of things that we're trying to work on as a department. The chief's top priorities right now are reducing crime, lowering response time, and improving the public trust. So in terms of reducing crime, we're obviously trying to work on all the patterns we're seeing and find out ways to more efficiently and effectively address those. Part of what we're trying to do is reduce our response time as an agency. So we've developed a few new data-driven algorithms we're using to monitor response times almost in real time, so we can make sure that we're getting our officers out to calls more efficiently and finding areas where we can shave precious minutes off of our response time, because that does make a difference when somebody's calling 911 or when we're trying to catch a criminal in the act. We're also trying to be more transparent as a department, more meetings like this, other meetings, chances to get out there and make the public aware of what we're doing and how we're doing it, so that it's not shrouded in mystery of what everyone's police department is doing out here in the city. Some of the issues we're facing in terms of crime perspective, and this mostly concerns our other sector right now, but is the issue of school safety. Our community resource officers and our other sector lieutenant are engaged in ongoing talks with the schools throughout the district. We have a monthly meeting with the schools to address patterns of juvenile violence and juvenile crime that we're seeing. And our CROs are making the rounds to talk to all of the schools. They, in the last month, I think, talked to 65 schools. So they spent a lot of time out there pounding the pavement, trying to find out what we can do to be a better partner for the schools and help get ahead of some of these problems. One of the programs we're pushing out at these schools right now is called Stolen Cars Can Steal Your Future. This is a program that was developed by our department a few years ago, and it's designed to be an educational forum where we can try to direct kids in a better direction than stealing cars. A lot of the cars we're seeing stolen are being stolen by juveniles, and we're trying to get ahead of these crimes so we can stop them before they end up in the criminal justice system. One of the other things we're doing in trying to lower our response time is get our department up to full strength. Through attrition in the last couple of years, we found ourselves significantly below our authorized strength as an agency. We're currently authorized by budget for around 1,600 officers, and currently we're approximately 140 officers shy of that goal. So we've been working hard on our recruiting efforts. We're running academy classes continuously, trying to get more officers out there on the street so we can keep the community safer and give the community the quick response times that everybody hopes for. One last issue I wanted to mention from the meeting the other night was the issue of street racing. As we're going into spring, we're going to see more street racing events popping up. This is something we're doing operations on continuously. Every week we have officers doing citywide operations to try to stay ahead of the street racing, which is currently being driven by a lot of social media communication with the racers. So we've had officers infiltrate some of these groups so that we can get real-time information on their activities. And one of our goals is to beat the racers to the locations where they're planning to gather. So when they post a new location that they're going to gather, we try to get our resources out there first. And in effect, what that does is break up the gathering before it ever starts. In cases where this hasn't been done throughout the city and the metro area, we've seen as many as 1,500 racers gather at some of these locations. So we can put an officer out there a lot of times and break it up before we even have 50 people there. And that's working through a collaborative effort with throughout our agency and other agencies in a street racing working group that we have going. To aid us in that partnership, please, if you see any street racing activity, either call it into the non-emergency number or go to reportstreetracing.com. That is a website we run with the Colorado Information Analysis Center to target street racing in the metro area. So if you don't want to call it in, go to reportstreetracing.com and make a report if you see it. That's communicated in real time to our guys who are out there, and it allows us to get ahead of these problems and prevent it from gathering in your neighborhoods. Before we finish here, I know Community Resource Officer Danae Ferenz is on the call with me. She was going to mention program we have called Denver Track, and also talk about some of the things we're doing with our upcoming meetings. Danae, are you there? Danae, if you're there, I think you're on mute at the moment.
Hi, sorry, I got kicked off as I was trying to unmute myself and start my video. Let's see, can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
We hear you, we don't see.
Yeah, that's strange. 1 second. Well, that is weird.
It's okay, officer.
I apologize.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
I apologize, but I was going to mention Denver Track. I know I sent you guys the flyers. I don't know if you're able to pull them up, but I'll just speak about it briefly. So it's a program that we just rolled out. We have some flyers and brochures that we've been passing out in the community, have been sending out via email and things like that. So basically, it's a new program where the Denver Police Department is trying to combat auto thefts, as we kind of spoke about. It's obviously a really big issue in our community. So by registering with Denver Track, investigators can utilize the tracking technologies in your vehicle to hopefully track the stolen car in the event your car is stolen. We're just not going to be tracking your vehicle at all times. It's in the event your car's stolen. We can then track it and hopefully recover it and arrest the suspects in that. You do have to have a current tracking system in your vehicle, whether that's already been placed in your vehicle when you purchased it or an aftermarket tracking GPS system. Things like the Apple AirTags will also work as well, which are fairly inexpensive and easy to buy and put in your vehicle. So any of those tracking devices, you just visit denvergov.org/denvertrack. You can easily register your vehicle. Once you do so, we will send you a sticker that says this vehicle is being tracked, which is a really good deterrent. It's a real small sticker you can place on your vehicle. So hopefully the thieves will see that and move along. So it's a message we're really trying to push out in the community, get as much people as we can to register their vehicles. I will put the website to register your vehicles in the chat, and I will constantly pushing out more information. If you're interested in this, feel free to shoot me an email and I can get you the information for the Denver Track program.
Thanks, Officer.
That's all I have. Thanks.
Do you mind muting? Oh yeah, thank you. I think I was just getting a bit of feedback there. In the interest of time, I'm gonna move us on, but I want to thank Lieutenant Hines. Our Vice President, Carol Hunter, wasn't able to make this evening's meeting, but she had a list of things that she wanted to make sure were addressed, and Lieutenant Hines went through them one by one. And I appreciate both Carol's diligence and that of Lieutenant Hines. If you do have any questions for Denver Police Department, I know Lieutenant Hines and Officer Friends will put their emails in the chat and you can follow up with them. I'm going to move us on to Councilman Herndon's office. I saw Amanda Steffen here. Hi, Amanda.
Hi, Jeff. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for having me, as always. Good to be back with you all. I have a couple of announcements. One is we are doing the final iteration of our leadership development program for high school students this summer. So June 7th, 8th, and 9th, we will host high school students for free leadership development programming, career exploration, and financial literacy courses. Like I said, totally free. You just have to get them to and from the Cube every day, and we provide all of the transportation and lunch and all of those things. Applications are open until March 26th. So if you know of a high school student who might be interested, would love to have them apply, you are welcome to reach out to us with any questions. Happy to answer those. The second thing is the city is looking for applications for members to serve on the Denver Sustainable Food Policy Council. That application is due April 17th. I'm happy to send you the information that I have if you want to send me an email or you can just Google Denver Sustainable Food Policy Council. You'll see a note at the top of the website that they're accepting applications, and you can apply that way. The third thing, if you're not already tired of hearing about it, you will be soon, but please, please, please vote in the municipal election. The deadline to return your ballot is 7 p.m. on April 4th. There are two 24-hour ballot drop boxes located in Central Park. There's one at the Central Park Rec Center, and there's one at the MCA Administrative Building. There's also a number of 24-hour drop boxes located throughout the district and nearby. So you can go to Denver Votes and check out any of the locations if you're looking for something that's more convenient for work or errands that you might have to run across town. But please, please, please do get your ballots back in before 7 o'clock on April 4th. And then I'll stick around through the end of the meeting. So if you have any questions for me, I'll be here.
Thanks, Amanda. Eric Herbst from NETC. Hey, Eric.
Hey everyone. Yeah, thanks for having us back. Let's see. I guess real quick, I'll do an intro. So I'm the assistant director at NETC, the Northeast Transportation Connections. We're basically a transportation nonprofit for Northeast Denver. What we do is help reduce congestion, improve air quality, and we do that by bringing mobility options to Northeast Denver. Couple of things we're working on right now. We're trying to get the word out about RTD's new MyRide system. So it's kind of the new fare payment system that they did an overhaul on. It makes it a lot easier and kind of more convenient for the user. It's a lot better on the app. So if you haven't used the MyRide app, it's definitely improved. It's account-based, it's real time, which is really nice, which means they can do fare capping. So if you're kind of out riding during the day and you only click on like a 3-hour ride ticket on your phone, but then you end up riding a couple times more, it basically caps it at a day fare so that it's not ever charging you more than what you rode for. It'll do that for the month too. So it'll cap it at a monthly RTD pass instead of kind of each trip that you did. So it's kind of cool because it can do that, makes it more convenient, makes you never pay more than you should if you're using RTD. The other thing is there's the new Colorado Clean Commute. So this was House Bill 1026. So we're trying to get the word out to businesses and organizations. It's basically an alternative transportation options tax credit where organizations can claim a tax credit of 50% of what they spend on alternative transportation options for employees. So if they provide like a EcoPass program to employees, they can claim 50% of that off on their taxes. What we're trying to do is get people to offer things like the RTD EcoPass and then kind of pass that savings on to employees or split that savings with the employees. So it would be a win-win for both employers and employees. So we're trying to get the word out about that. This includes nonprofits too, which is exciting. So nonprofits can take advantage of that tax credit. Let's see, Bike to Work Day is coming up. It's June 28th. Right now we're getting businesses to sign up for the business challenge. And that way, when the registration opens for participants in mid-April, the business is already there for participants to kind of log under which business they belong to. So if you guys know any businesses or belong to any businesses that want to participate in Bike to Work Day, definitely reach out to me. I will also put some links in the chat where you can kind of just go in and sign up your business. It's really simple. Top businesses in the region get regional recognition with the Denver Business Journal. This year, we're also trying to plan locally in Central Park. We're trying to plan a big kind of bike from work party. We have a bunch of bike to work stations all around Central Park and Northeast Denver. But this year, we're really trying to get kind of a fun after work party celebration for Bike to Work Day. So more on that to come. Lastly, I will mention This has been in the works for a long time for the Central Park train station, but we will have on-demand smart lockers coming this spring. They should be getting installed this spring. It's part of a system with a couple of other train stations, but it's basically night and day from what the bike lockers are today. Today, you have to go rent a key from RTD. One person gets a key for 6 months at a time. So only one person can use that locker, regardless of if they're actually using it day to day. So these new ones will be on demand, meaning you could open them with your smartphone. And as long as nobody's using it, you would be able to unlock one, use it in real time, and then go kind of take the train or take a bus to downtown or to the airport, and then come back and unlock with your phone and get your bike out. And then it would be freed up for other users to use. So we hope to get more participants kind of using that system. It's all an effort to bring more convenient, secure bike parking to the neighborhood, to hopefully get more people, one less barrier to bike to the train station or bike to get on a bus there. Those are, I think, most all of my updates for now. I will, like I said, I'll put some links in the chat, and then I'll stick around if you guys have questions.
Thanks, Eric. Really good stuff there. Finally, we have the MCA, Diane, it's spring, which means people are going to start following you a little more often, I'm guessing.
Indeed. So we are currently getting ready for the summer season. The events group has hired a new event manager, our event manager, Dana Kinney, who has been with us. Actually, she's worked with us for 10 years. She started as one of our managers at one of our pools and has worked with us for a while. So she is going to be leaving and pursuing her first love, which is music. And she is a trained opera singer. And we're excited for her new venture. So we have hired a replacement for her and then an assistant to that replacement. So we have 2 new staff there, and we are getting ready to hire our 165 summer staff and look forward to all of that chaos that ensues with it. But it always makes for a fun time. With that, we currently are just in hold on the puddle jumper repair and reconstruction of that building. So that will be tied up for a bit with permits at the city, etc., while we proceed on the reconstruction of that. It does not at this time look like it's going to be something that opens with us at the beginning of the season. So we'll be making some modifications to some schedules elsewhere to help accommodate that. And we will still be hiring on that staff so that once it's ready, hopefully it'll be ready, keeping our fingers crossed, we can get our staff right over there and be ready to go. Otherwise, that's kind of the process we're in at the moment. We do have we're finalizing our summer event calendar. It will be in the May front porch. It's probably going to be we're probably going to go up to a pull-out this year again. We're not sure yet, but it will all be in the front porch, and you can either cut it out or pull it out and put it on your refrigerator or on your cork board somewhere. I can't think of anything else specifically we've got, but that's what we've got going on so far. Any questions?
Yeah, any questions for Diane? Diane, let Dana know how disappointed I am that I've worked with her for however many years, and I had no idea she was a trained opera singer. I have so many questions.
Yeah.
So
she's actually going to be one of the summer directors for the Central City Opera.
Oh, fantastic.
We're very, very excited for her. It's been something she's been wanting to pursue. So we're
give him the best.
We'll do. Oh, I do know. We do have on April 1st, our egg scramble at runway 35.
Oh, can you say a little bit more about that?
Yes, we have, that's where we kind of do our egg hunt. We do have people calling and asking what time brunch is and how much it costs. But it's a scramble because the eggs really are not hidden. They are laid out on a field and everybody scrambles for them. So we will start that at 10 a.m. and we do 2 groups, and it's just kind of a fun 10 to 11:30 on April 1st. Just over 12,000 eggs will be gathered up in seconds, and I mean seconds.
And can you clarify for folks where runway 35 is in this instance?
Runway 35 is north of I-70. It is actually, if you turn left on 46th off of Central Park Boulevard as you're heading to the north from I-70, turn left on 46th, it will be on your right, just a block in.
Great, thank you.
You bet.
All right, and I'm going to move us on so we can stay on track with Dr. Rousseau in her time. But John Flanagan from San Gary Branch Library is here. I think we missed each other. So John, if you want to add any updates, happy to have you.
All right.
There you are, John.
All right. Thank you. I'll go very quickly. Thank you, Jeff. Just a couple quick things. One thing I wanted to mention was the voters overwhelmingly passed Measure 2I back in November. And I just want to include, drop something into the chat here. There's a website where we're kind of keeping people up to date on what we're doing with that money. We are hiring people. We're going to expand hours. That is going to take a little bit of time. In the meantime, we have increased our collection by a fair amount, especially ebooks. So the waiting time for the hold list for those has already gone in half, which is great. And we are hiring. So that link that I sent also has links to various jobs at Denver Public Library. And then I wanted to mention that we are kind of increasing the amount of in-person events that we're doing at the Sam Gary Branch Library. We've got a bunch of some author visits, and we've got a string quintet coming up. I'm going to drop a link for that in there, but keep an eye on our events page for, we're going to be doing a lot more in-person events now. Active Minds once a month in person as well. And then the only other thing I wanted to mention was that we will be looking for teen volunteers this summer to help out with our Summer of Adventure program. We try and bring in a lot of teens to help out with that. That will be mid-April that we will start accepting applications for that. But I will also post a link in the chat for that too, for a website to keep an eye on. Otherwise, check in person at the branch. And that's all I got.
Thanks, John. Any questions for John and San Gary Branch Library? If not, we'll move on right on time to a very special guest, one that the Outreach Committee has been looking forward to scheduling for some time now. And we're very happy to have Dr. Aisha Rousseau here. She's the city's Chief Equity Officer out of the Office of Social Equity and Innovation. Dr. Rousseau, thank you so much for joining us, and you are welcome to take it away.
Thank you. Well, it's a pleasure to be here. You all are my neighborhood. My dear sweet darling is on the RNO, and so we are used to juggling these schedules and having some very interesting conversations in our house about the work between the RNO and the city, and always happy to be active in the community and see all the work that you all are doing. As Jeff introduced me, I am the Chief Equity Officer. Some of you may have remembered before October of 2021. I was the director of the Division of Disability Rights. I oversaw over $650 million worth of accessibility updates to the city. Love doing that work. And so in October of 21, Mayor Michael B. Hancock appointed me as the Chief Equity Officer, and I have been doing that work since that time. So I will just jump in a little bit and tell you all what I do. Don't feel like you need to wait to the end if you have any questions or you want to jump in. Feel free to do that. This is going to be a little bit of a splash between giving you all a little bit of insight on the training that we do, as well as just telling you all about our office as well. So I am going to, okay, let me just say no judgment if you all see all of these things that are being shared on my, all the things that are on my desktop. Don't judge me. It's pretty bad.
Just one. Oh, yeah, just one slide deck. Looks good.
Y'all good?
Yeah, all good.
Okay, fantastic. So we are the Mayor's Office of Social Equity and Innovation. Our office came about, started actually as an initiative in 2018. A few folks went to Seattle, kind of scoped out Seattle's Race and Social Justice Initiative, and then came back and proposed that we would start a Race and Social Justice Initiative. Sometimes you hear some people who are running for some offices that will be left unnamed, talking about that group of individuals that went to Seattle and scoped out the work that was going on there. I happen to be one of those individuals. We were actually going to scope out some disability stuff, and somehow we got sidetracked and were so intrigued by their Race and Social Justice Initiative office that we took a pit stop for a full day and just began to understand the work that they were doing over there. One of my colleagues, Kim Desmond, came back and started this office. So in 2019, the mayor started the Mayor's Office of Social Equity and Innovation. So we moved from an initiative, just like a program underneath an agency, and we are our own agency at this point. So similar to other agencies in the city, we are headed by an executive director, which is myself, although that's not always the title that I use. And we actually have citywide impact. So while there may be some agencies that just focus on community or just focus on internal, we focus on all 13,000 employees in the city, and then also our external engagement as well. So I'm just going to go through these a little bit. I trust that everyone can read, and everything is being recorded here tonight. So if someone is unable to read, we can always provide assistance to you. One of the things that we always like to start with when we are providing our trainings and talking about the Mayor's Office of Social Equity and Innovation, you all may hear me refer to it as OSEI as our abbreviation or acronym, I'm sorry, is our land acknowledgement. We always want to acknowledge and to show respect and honor of the indigenous peoples of the land. You all may be familiar with this when you hear about City Council. City Council worked with this office and created a land acknowledgement several years ago. And the land acknowledgement that City Council reads before every City Council meeting is similar to this one. Ours is a little bit different, but it is similar to this one. Again, it is acknowledging the various indigenous peoples and their land, and that we are on their land. And so we always start our trainings off letting folks know that we acknowledge that. In addition to our land acknowledgement, we also have a labor acknowledgement. We acknowledge that this country was built with stolen and forced labor. We acknowledge that our country's economy, infrastructure, and resulting generational wealth would not have existed without the free labor produced by chattel slavery. And so both in the land acknowledgement and the labor acknowledgement, we want to make sure that we are clear about acknowledging those who in our history oftentimes historically have been underrepresented or ignored and overlooked, and making sure that in the work that we do, that we pause to reflect on both the land and the labor, that folks who many are faceless and many are nameless, but that this country would not exist without either the work and or the sacrifice of these folks. So you can go to 10 different places and hear 10 different definitions of equity. And so one of the things, although I was not the first chief equity officer, but one of the first things that I did when I came into the office in October of 21 was to say, let's really be clear about how we are defining equity. I used to joke that it is a joke, that if I had to drink every time somebody said equity, I might be drunk before 9 a.m. And so I really wanted people to hone in on the definition of what we meant by equity, so that when we were having conversations and we were asking people to come to the table and have dialogue about equity, we could all be working from the same definition. And so this is the very simplistic definition that we use here in the city and county of Denver. When race and other social identities can no longer be used to predict life outcomes. And we've also added to that and say, can no longer be used to predict life outcomes or negatively impact the services that are being received from the city and county of Denver. So oftentimes we get this question. So we always just like to let folks know where we stand with this. We are race explicit, but we are not race exclusive. So in other words, we lead with race, but we don't end with race. And so when we say race, we presuppose that an intersectional analysis of ethnicity, class, gender, sexuality, individuals with disabilities, age, et cetera, are factored in. So what we know about race is that racial inequities are deep and pervasive. We know that race is still the primary determinant of one's success. So it doesn't matter what marginalized group you look at. I'll take folks with disabilities. If you are talking about folks with disabilities, if you add race as a variable into that discussion, it is going, the research shows us that there is a direct determination of one's success when we begin to look at the data. We also know that a systems approach to racial equity prioritizes the dismantling of systemic equities. That's what our office is here to do, to take a systems approach to looking at and addressing systemic inequities. And any worthwhile institutional and structural approach to racism will help to understand other forms of marginalization. So when we lead with race, if we are bold and courageous enough to lead in discussions around race, it inevitably leads to other discussions around gender, class, disability, age, etc. So one of the main programs that people have heard about is our Race and Social Justice Academy. Somebody literally just came in, I bet maybe about an hour and a half ago, and asked me, hey, Doc, can we offer this training to folks outside of Denver? And we've gotten that question a lot. We've gotten that from a major company that I won't name here that you all would definitely recognize, and several actually. And what we always say is that we're really focused on starting at home. Charity starts at home. And so we are really intentional about ensuring that we train all city employees around our Race and Social Justice Academy. And then maybe the day may come where we may be able to branch out and train others. But right now it's really important for us to begin to train or finish training all of our city employees. So you can read here what the Race and Social Justice Academy really involves. There are 4 sessions that folks are asked to take. And they cover everything from what do we mean about foundational information about what we mean about race and social justice strategies, all the way to how can individuals apply the information in their day-to-day work. And so all employees are required to take our Race and Social Justice Academy. It is a charge that the mayor has given to all employees. And so we are on the trajectory that when he finished his administration in 117 days, no one is counting, that we will have all city employees that have completed the Race and Social Justice Academy. So these are the objectives for our Race and Social Justice Academy. We expect that attendees will be able to discuss how racism and social injustices are embedded in our society. They should be able to harness their learnings to drive their work as public servants, explore how their experiences have been shaped by the social construction of race, recognize and transform our own racially biased practices and habits, develop an awareness of historic social, political, and legal events and decisions that have created racial inequities. And by the end of any training, by the end of the day, we're always hoping that they will be able to develop a framework to understand how racial equity is applicable in all of our lives and the work that we do as city employees. So here are a couple of tidbits. How am I looking on time, Jeff?
You're good. You have about 10 minutes.
Okay, I love it. All right. So here are a couple of things. I just carved out a little bit of information that I thought that you all might find interesting, considering that you all are a registered neighborhood organization. One of the things that we talk about in our race and social justice training is structural racism in housing. And what does that even look like? So of course, I'm sure that you all are all too familiar with the term of redlining and what that means. Redlining, again, an illegal discriminatory practice in which historically marginalized communities and people are denied mortgage loans, insurance, etc. And it's often based on someone's racial characteristics. And so this is a map of Denver in the 1930s. It shows redlining quite easily explained. The red sections are where in the 1930s they knew that there were toxic chemicals, blighted areas. There were things in the soil that were not necessarily favorable for folks to live there. And then as you go through the colors, there were more advantaged areas where somebody would want to live. So that's kind of the concept of redlining. Okay, don't know what I just got there. Oh, okay, there we go. Another one that we talk about are racially restrictive covenants. This is an example that's in Southwest Denver. Racially restrictive covenants are when legally enforceable agreements that prevented white owners of properties in certain segregated areas from selling property to anyone who was not white. So oftentimes, people think that these are things that just happen in the South, but this happened, as you can see from this document over on the right-hand side, this happened right here in Denver, Colorado. And as you can see on the diagram in the lower left, this particular covenant was specific to Southwest Denver. We just used this one as an example, but there are all sorts of covenants all over that are similar to this that indicate, as you can see, again, to the right-hand side under number 1, only persons of the Caucasian race shall own, use, or occupy any dwelling or residence erected upon said lots or tracts. This is not really all that uncommon. It's always amazing to hear people say, you know, I moved into this neighborhood, I signed this covenant, and I had no idea that this was part of the history of this covenant. But it doesn't take a whole lot of digging to find restrictive covenants like this in Denver and in other cities, small and large. So the structural legacy of racism in Denver housing is really important. As we move from left to right, you see that there's redlining in the 1930s, and then there was blight in the 1970s. And then we look at the poverty rates in 2022. And you'll notice, if you just kind of pay attention to the red section all the way to the left, in the 1930s, and then you come over here to poverty in 2022, there are still overlaps to this day. And so although redlining does not exist, it is you know, clearly illegal and has been really called out in the years since 1930. We see that it has multi-generational impacts and effects on people. And so when we look at race and displacement in Denver, again, this map doesn't look too different than the redlining map that we saw. We look at neighborhoods, the inverted L that we're all familiar with. When you see the percent of non-white residents, we can find ourselves in Central Park on there fairly easily. And then with displacement of vulnerability, from those who are least vulnerable to those who are most vulnerable. Again, the inverted L, and how redlining has and continues to have an effect in Denver, even to the present day. So I'm not sure how many of you all are familiar with the book, The Color of Law. If you're not, I would highly suggest adding it to your reading list. It's a great book. And what we know is that without our government's purposeful imposition of policies, segregation by law and public policy would not even be able to exist. And so oftentimes when I'm engaging in delightful conversation over drinks and appetizers, someone will say, why does this even matter? Like, why are you all even doing this? Why is this applicable for our tax dollars in the United States or in Denver? And I oftentimes share because as a government entity, we have the ability to create and or modify policies. And if these policies did not exist in local government, we wouldn't have the types of things like private prejudice and real estate steering, bank redlining, income differences, segregation, that has been supported over centuries. And so we want to ensure that we have an office like the Office of Social Equity and Innovation to ensure that just as those practices were reviewed and put in place many years ago, that we are reviewing those policies and ensuring that we are not creating and or supporting inequitable practices for Denver's residents, residents and visitors. And so why does all of this even matter? Because look at what the estimated life expectancy is in years for those folks that live in the inverted L. For those individuals that live in these areas that haven't been blighted, that haven't been redlined over tens of years, the life expectancy is much greater. And for those that have been redlined and or pushed out to the margins of our city, and our city is not the only one in the nation. There are many that are, I'd be pressed to find one that isn't like this. We see that the estimated life expectancy becomes lower and lower for individuals who have been pushed to the margins of society and or less desirable neighborhoods over time because of various reasons. Mills being put up, waste being in those particular areas. And then you think about the growing or layering effect of that. So then what does that look like as far as bus lines going to those areas? What does that look like as far as grocery stores being in those areas, prisons or jails being in those particular areas? It just continues to have an ongoing impact. So that's kind of us in a nutshell. It's some of the information that we share about folks. I want to share one other item with you all. Again, feel free to reach out to us anytime, socialequity@denvergov.org. But one of the things that I was asked was to share with you all how you all could, how you all could become more active in our office or in the work that we are doing. So I want to share this last screen with you all really briefly. Wonderful. So again, we talk about our Race and Social Justice Academy. To the right-hand side, you'll see some of the pre and post information or data that we have received. One of the things that I failed to point out, I apologize, is that we are broken into 4 pillars. Our first pillar is our trainings and strategies. That's what I showed you a little bit of in the previous slides. But we also have operations and innovations, and they are just what they sound like. They are the ones that document our operations, document how we're doing things, why we're doing things, so that this office and this agency can continue on. They are also the group that comes up with innovative ideas about how we are going to do different projects. And then we have our data analysis and evaluation. As a researcher, I wouldn't be worth my weight in gold if I wasn't looking for what the data is telling us and pointing us in what direction we should be leaning and guiding towards doing our work. And so this is some of the pre and post data that we have received. This is feedback that we have received from city employees. I understand how historical racism impacts Denver residents today. We see an 18% growth reported from employees after taking the training. And I'm comfortable talking about race in the workplace, a 15% growth. So significant, we realize that it's significant that people feel that there is an opportunity and a space to be able to talk about these types of things such that we are able to address these types of matters head on. And then last but not least, we have internal and external councils. Internal councils are just that, councils that are specific and internal to the city and county of Denver, consisting of various employees around the city that work on racial equity work. However, we have a racial equity council that is for external and community members. You'll see over here to the left-hand side, the Racial Equity Council is an external community group that informed equitable solutions during the height of the COVID pandemic. This is also a group that continues to work with us. We show them our REAPs, or our racial equity action plans. We talk to them about where various agencies are going with their racial equity work, and we ask them to weigh in. And so this is a wonderful way for folks to get involved in the Mayor's Office of Social Equity and Innovation, lend their support, lend their voices, lend their expertise. If anybody here is interested, we welcome you to send an email to socialequity@denvergov.org, and we will, we have a few applications coming in, but we will be more than happy to see applications from you all and what your contribution could be to the Racial Equity Council. That's it.
That's terrific. Thank you, Dr. Rousseau.
Yeah.
We're a little over, but I do want to ask just a couple of quick questions, if it's okay.
Sure.
I really appreciated that last slide where we saw some of the impacts that you've had and some of the ways for individuals to get involved. Maybe even if just anecdotally, is there sort of an outcome or an impact that you've had that you're particularly proud of? Anything that comes to mind from your time in this role?
That's a great question as I'm reviewing our annual report here right now. You know, I think what I am most proud about is that this office and the work that we do ensures that racial equity and social equity and social justice is literally embedded in every agency. So we have an annual report that's coming out in the next couple of days, and it talks about just that, how we are embedded in every single agency. And then I'm going to show you this really quickly. This is something that I'm super, super proud of, and I hope that you all will look for this when it rolls out next week. We worked on this for a year. It is our Equity in Denver report, How History Impacts Equity Today. It covers everything from historical overview of race in Denver, who lives in Denver, financial stability with a breakdown of race, education, transportation and infrastructure, housing and home ownership, public health and environment, public safety. It covers all the hot button items and talks about what equity looks like over a historical period, and which indicators or which factors we have pulled out and we have said as a city, these are the ones that we are going to focus on so that we can begin to take small bites to make a bigger difference as it pertains to equity. This is the only report, while there have been equity reports that have come out across the country, this is the only equity report of this fashion in the nation that really talks about the historical implications over hundreds of years and where we are landing today. Also to that piece, I'd also like to add that we are also the largest municipal racial equity office in the nation. Not a week goes by that there's not a city that contacts us asking us, how do we do what we're doing? And so at 13 members, and I think by the end of the administration, it'll be 16 or 17 of us here in the office, we are the largest in the nation. And really just doing ensuring that equity is embedded in every single agency that reports under the mayor.
That's terrific. When that report comes out, if you want to send it my way or send a link,
I would love to do that.
To distribute that.
We will be more than happy to. Thank you.
Terrific. Last one, unless others have questions. We talked about ways individuals can get involved, but there's a lot of organizations on this call as well. We're an RNO, the MCA, NUTC, CPBA. I see lots of faces from organizations. What are some resources within the city, even if outside of your office, that organizations at the community level that are interested in doing this kind of work might take advantage of?
Yeah, that's a great question. There are a plethora of organizations, too numerous, honestly, for me to list here because I know that I would forget folks. But there are, I'll just say this, if there's anything specific that you all are looking for, if you all will email the social equity inbox, I can connect you to pretty much any category that you're looking for. we're putting out an RFP coming up soon, and for folks to come in and do training. And somebody was asking me, can you just give me 2 or 3 people, 2 or 3 organizations? And I was like, there are so many that do it. We would be remiss not to just put it out and allow people to say that they're interested, because there are so many groups, some multifaceted, some really focusing specific on housing, others focusing on education, just really depending on what specific area you'd like to focus on.
Great, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Dr. Rousseau? Mandel, I see you speaking, but I don't hear you.
Oh,
There
can
you
you hear
are.
me now?
Now I can, yeah.
I can hear you
Okay.
now.
I've got a question. I wanted to make sure that we knew, is there a way, as this administration changes over, is there a way that we as citizens can make sure that OSEI stays active?
I think that's a great question. What I would say is no different than any other, right? Our council, we know that several council seats are going to come open, and several mayoral seats. So let me say that I'm making this statement as a public citizen, not as a employee of the city and county of Denver. One of the things that I have been interested in doing as a resident is asking them, what is their intentions around social equity, or what, just asking them directly, what do they think about not just our office, but various offices that aren't necessarily in the charter, because they could go away, they could stay. And so if this type of work is important to you, as it is to me, it's one of the questions that I ask. One of the things that I anecdotally tell people is that our technology services isn't in the charter. So are they, I'm wondering, are they going to get rid of them? I would hope not, because we needed them. We couldn't have made it without them during COVID. And so my contention is the same about doing racial equity work. We've gone long enough without having entities that do this kind of work. And so how do they feel about continuing that kind of work? I think that as residents and voting folks, that these are all questions that are fair game to ask.
Thank you very much. Well, Dr. Rousseau, I appreciate the time you've given us this evening. It's been a long day for you. You're still at the office. Thank you very much for joining us. We're glad to have you in Central Park, of course, and look forward to seeing you around the neighborhood. Thank you, Dr. Rousseau. We'll please do send me that link, and we'll get the report circulated.
We'll definitely do it. Thank you, neighbors. I appreciate all that you all do. Have a good night.
Thank you.
All right, Brian, if you don't mind taking back control of the screen there. We do have a public comment period. We're running just a bit behind schedule. I'm seeing is this Dr. I'm not sure whose screen we're seeing at the moment, but we're seeing somebody's screen. Brian, can you take over and do the slide deck again?
I thought I did. Sorry about that, Jeff.
That's okay.
Can you see it now?
Public comment period. We are running a bit behind, but do you want to make sure that we give the floor to anyone that would like to make a public comment? If not, all right, let's carry on, and I'll suggest to the board that we skip the break and go straight into the board meeting, if that's okay. Again, our board hour is public, and you're welcome to join and sit in and listen if you wish. All right. What do we got here? Let's start. We can start with committee updates. I want to make sure we have quota for any vote for the INC vote that we have to take. Do we have enough people from the board on?
I
Sorry.
counted.
Yes.
I counted. We had 8, and so I think we do.
Okay, cool. Okay, great. All right. Well, let's just do committee updates. I'll speak first on behalf of the Communication and Outreach Committee. We'll talk a little bit more about it later, but I really just want to thank Liz and Mark and Mandel for all the work that's gone into these candidates forums. over the last month or so. I think they've been really successful. We'll talk more again about it, but that's been one of kind of my most proud things that CPUN's done in this board year are those events. So really happy with how those turned out. As always, we're doing outreach to various segments of the community. One of the main points of emphasis that we established was with the bag giveaway to the north end. And I know Mark's got 50 sitting in the front of his house. And so if you're willing and able to help distribute some of those, I know he'd appreciate the help and the additional square footage back. So Mark, do you want to say anything more about that?
It's not just the north end. I've got some addresses in our new Aurora portion.
Oh, great. Fantastic.
As well as throughout kind of wherever people are moving in. I've got 90 some addresses on the list, and we only have 50 bags, so I'm going to kind of portion them out based on where people, volunteer or want to deliver, so that you don't hopefully have to go too far away if you're willing to volunteer.
Do you maybe just email Mark if that's something you'd be willing to do. I've done it most times, and it really doesn't take long. Mark does a nice job of sort of bumping the addresses together, so they're oftentimes on a single block or on a single street.
Yeah, there's one section where it's like 15 addresses that are basically the same address in different units in a building.
Yeah.
But not one of those ones you can reach outside. And the weather's a lot nicer than it used to be too, so it's a great time to volunteer.
Yeah, so it's not like you're driving here, there, and everywhere. It's like you get out, you park your car once, and have a nice little spring walk. Anything else, Mark, that you'd want to add for outreach?
Yeah, there's one thing that we're going to hopefully have an email going out for soon. Technically, our fundraising falls under communication and outreach,
yes.
and 2 months from today will be the first annual Central Park Classic mini golf tournament at Flightco. We've been working on the details of it, and we're ready to start unrolling and unwrapping everything. So look for an email soon. We'll have tee times at noon, 2, and 4, and that means you put the ball. There's not literally going to be a golf tee, but we'll start putting at all up to 18 holes per tee time. So there'll be information going out about that this week to our email list, and people can get a discount for signing up early, an additional discount for signing up for a 4-pack or a foursome. And there'll be, I think I know Matt from the Central Park Business Association is on. I don't remember if there's any sponsorship opportunities left. I think they had whole sponsors for almost all the holes so far.
Right.
But Matt, if you have anything to add there, it should be a great event. I think it'll be a great event to bring the community together. Hopefully people find some folks on their block. But it is for our first event specifically with an opportunity that we've heard before of singles to get to know each other. So if you are a single in Central Park and you want to meet other singles, we will try to arrange that so that you get in a group or get in a hole where you golf with other singles in the neighborhood.
I like it. Matt, did you want to add anything? You're on mute if you do.
I thought spacebar was to unmute. Sorry. All the green sponsorships, the 18 of them have been spoken for, but we're exploring additional sponsor opportunities. And we're also looking for an additional volunteer for our planning group. So if anybody is interested in working on ironing out the final details for this awesome event, let Mark or me know. Thanks.
Great. DEI committee, anything to share?
Not too many updates since we meet every other month, but I know that the planning committee for the mini golf reached out to us for some thoughts on DEI and inclusion around any sponsored tickets for that. And so I just want to let you guys know, like, we are kind of actively discussing and we'll get you some feedback soon on that. And I think that I had a couple of questions. Something that in our previous meeting that we had discussed was kind of what similar to what Dr. Rousseau brought up during her talk, but in talking to during the candidate forums that we recently hosted, and then we'll hopefully be hosting in May, if there's for the runoffs, having questions around candidates' ideas around equity and inclusion and how they would prioritize that. So something that we're doing is just kind of like brainstorming among ourselves, like 1 or 2 questions in that area. I think similar to the way other committees have been kind of coming up with questions as well. But something I wanted to ask you, Jeff, was just, I know there were some written questions that were sent to the mayoral candidates. And I was just wondering if you had received any responses to those written questions that can be shared out with the community.
Yeah, we have. That's the goal. I'll let Mark speak to it though, because he's been receiving the lion's share of them. I've only been copied on it.
Yeah, we
Okay,
do
yeah,
have several candidates. I just haven't had time to put them up, unfortunately. So if anybody who is web savvy is able to volunteer, I can email them all to you and we can figure out a way to get them all posted. I just haven't had time to, unfortunately. And I've really wanted to, but I just have been swamped.
I'm not sure about like the web savvy part, but like in terms of like formatting it and putting the information together, I'm happy to kind of assist with that too.
And Mark,
yeah,
you
it's
can
mostly just.
Yeah, you can. I can put them on the website
Okay.
if you send them to me.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's mostly just everybody responded with a PDF file of some sort. So we just need to find a place to put them. So I'll send them to you, Brian. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
And a similar question for District 8. I know we received responses from Brad Rivera and Shalise.
Chantel.
Chantel, excuse me.
That's the second time I think you've done that, but yeah, that's okay.
Oh no, I hope that's not true. I'm sorry, Chantel Lewis. Is there, were there any others? I don't think so.
I think those are the only ones that I remember seeing at the moment.
Okay, great. Okay. I guess whenever they're available or whenever they're up, I wanted to make sure that I sent them out to our DEI mailing list. And obviously I would assume they'd also go out to the community at large, but just wanted to check on the status of that.
Liz,
I think it'll move forward more quickly thanks to Brian.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
I'll make sure everybody gets the web link, and then Jack can put it in the next, well, I don't know about the next one, but a upcoming email.
And do the candidates have a deadline to produce those, or?
Yeah,
they did, and they've all passed.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Now we do take late submissions, so if anybody shows up with a late one, that's fine.
All right, we'll move on to the Education Committee. I don't actually think either chair is here. Is there anyone that's on the Education Committee that wants to say anything? Nope.
I'm peripherally on the Education Committee, and we are discussing the possibility of pivoting my orange bag project, since the whole clothing collection thing is the organizations are just too different post pandemic. And so we're talking about possibly pivoting it to be able to collect school supplies for children who are not able to afford books and backpacks and pencils and notebooks, binders, things like that, and getting the community to do those types of donations possibly twice a year. So we're still in the early stages of figuring those things out.
Great. Thanks, Angela. Health and safety. I think Jeff, I'd be looking for Jeff Barron, but it doesn't look like he's here tonight.
Is Jack here? I thought I saw Jack.
Yeah, Jack, you stepped away from this committee, right?
I did. I have started a new job. I actually work for the Denver Star program now. So the great work that we have talked about and worked so hard to put together here, I've had the great opportunity to begin working for them. So unfortunately, I had to step away, and Jeff has graciously offered to step in for me.
Congratulations, Jack. And thanks for all that you've done for that committee. Safe streets. That's another one that Carol leads. Does we have anyone else on that committee here? No? All right, and then finally, sustainability.
Yeah, unfortunately, I've had to put the sustainability committee on pause for a little bit, probably until our June meeting, because I lost my co-chair to his run for a little while, and we'll see how that goes for him. And we'll see if we get some more candidates. But I've also got this Central Park Classic. Did I mention that? The group mini golf tournament. Hopefully everyone's ready to sign up for that. I've got to be focusing on that for the next couple of months. So I had to put the sustainability committee on the back burner for a little bit.
Understandable, Mark. You've been doing a ton. Thanks for all that. Okay, well, why don't we carry on then to the guest speaker calendar. We're booked through the end of the board year. Next month we've got Jeff Ederer in his new capacity as the president of the CPBA booked, and then in May we'll have our annual forum. Just so that that's on everybody's calendars, that is scheduled for tentatively scheduled for May 16th. I just need to make sure that's good with the queue, because we'll want to do that as a hybrid event, so people can join in person. And that one we tend to have, as you'll know, some of the development representation back, some city officials, sometimes from DPS. Tends to be a little more on those speakers that are whose updates tend to have longer arcs rather than more incremental ones, like Denver Police Department, for example. And of course, we'll vote on a slate, which we'll talk a little bit about that as well later. I did include, just for the sake of keeping the record, some of the other entities that the outreach committee brainstormed at the beginning of our year on future speakers. So as we move into the next calendar year, those will be there for anyone that wants to perhaps take that up. All right, candidates forums. So again, congratulations on 2 successful forums, Mark Liz Mandel and Brian Weber, who's just been great support. Just curious, does anyone that attended the forum have any feedback for us, or any impressions on how those went?
I was only able to attend the Merrill Forum, and I mean, I thought it was very well attended, very well done. It could have turned into a circus. And Jeff, your name's not on here, but you did an amazing job making sure that it was done. And I think the Mark's on here, but Mark's son also did all of the videography.
Oh yeah.
So I think that it was great. And actually, I talked to one of the candidates the weekend following, and she said, she really liked the format and thought it went well.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that. And yes, Mark, thanks to your son for all the audio visual work. Yeah. Well, the mayoral one was interesting. With so many candidates, it was difficult to organize it in a way where you could ask questions. But one thing I heard from both residents and the candidates was that they really appreciated the 3 minutes, because the candidates were saying, I feel like I only ever get 30 seconds or 45 seconds and I could really express myself. And then the people in the audience were saying 3 minutes felt like enough to kind of get this person. I kind of get their deal and I get where they're coming from. And so it worked out in kind of an interesting way that I'm not sure voters in this cycle have had much of an opportunity to experience. So I'm glad for that. We're not done. Mark, I'll kind of lean on you to describe the Fair Election Fund debate, which is organized by the Office of the Denver Clerk and Reporter. And then we can talk a little bit about the decision that we have to make fairly quickly here and maybe get some board feedback on what the best path is.
Yeah, happy to talk about the Fair Election Fund. For those who don't know, Denver has a form of public financing for the first time this election cycle. There was a ballot measure that passed a few years back that essentially put into, not into the charter, but into code that the city council or the mayor and city council put a certain amount of money each year into the Fair Election Fund, and then that is then matched. So for those of you who have been asked a lot for money by candidates and told about this 9-to-1 match. That's what it is. The idea is obviously to get more money coming from voters and giving you a chance to direct some of those your tax dollars to those candidates. One of the requirements that's put on candidates, in addition to lower contribution limits, for achieving or qualifying for this, is that they have to take part in a public debate for their race. And the Clerk and Recorder's Office has created a process for there to be official Fair Election Fund qualifying debates. We didn't know about this at the time that we scheduled our first two events, so I think we're probably at that point too late for the official application process. But once we found about these events, we applied and were accepted to be if there's a runoff in District 8, to be the official Fair Election Fund, or one of the official Fair Election Fund events for Council District 8. So we didn't get that for the mayoral forum because they also, I think, already had one for that and didn't really need us there. But I think in the Council District races, it's a little bit easier. So the candidates who take public matching funds are required to go to this forum. And the part of the issue we had in planning these forums is for the runoff, we were hoping to do one for each race again, mayor and city council for District 8. So we have kind of a choice ahead of us. We have the Cube available to us, which seems to have the best audiovisual technical capabilities and internet capabilities for holding this on the 11th. The Cube is not available on the 4th, which is May the 4th, I should say, and May the 11th, which were the dates we'd kind of outlined that we were targeting. So we can either do it on the 11th. We were envisioning originally doing both of them on the same night and continuing on with a mayoral forum, even though it wouldn't be a technical Fair Election Fund debate. It would just be, one that the two candidates get to go for anyways. Oh, I should take a step back. For those who don't know, or maybe haven't voted in Denver before, we have a runoff election. So if you don't get 50% of the vote in most of the races for city elections in the April 4th election, then the top two candidates go to a runoff in, I think it's an early June ballot. So these debates would need to be before May 15th to qualify for the Fair Election Fund's official application. And we were looking at early to mid-May, kind of around the time ballots go out, just like the last one. The dates we were looking at were May 4th and May 11th. Originally, we were just looking at the 4th, but it sounds like the Cube's unavailable on the 4th. So we're looking at May 11th as a possible date where we could do an hour for City Council District 8 and then an hour for the mayor's race. Or we could do both of them on the 4th like we had originally planned, just at a different location since the Cube's not available. Or we could just do the District 8 forum at the Cube on the 11th and not hold a mayoral forum. Those are sort of the main options we're looking at. And I guess it sounds like Jeff wanted to get everybody's feedback to see what we all thought about those different options and kind of making a decision and moving forward.
Yeah, sorry for my ignorance here on this, Mark, but is there not an option where we have the 8th, where we have the District 8 and the mayoral on the 11th?
We could certainly do them on different nights.
No, both
if we do anything on the 4th, then we have to do a different location. So
what about on the 11th?
What's that?
What about on the 11th?
Option 1 is to do both of them on the 11th.
Oh, it says.
Oh no, I'm sorry. I meant that for them to be the same night. I don't know why I did that.
Okay.
No, I'm sorry. The reason for not doing the mayoral forum on the 11th is that the city has an official event on the 11th for mayor somewhere else. So it would probably be hard for us to have much turnout for that on the 11th. And the other options are we could certainly pick another date for everything too. We were just kind of specifically looking at those Thursdays. In which case, we may or may not want to do, I don't know what they have exactly on the 11th, other than I believe it's a mayoral forum someplace else. Sorry, I forgot about that detail. So thank you for reminding me.
Is everybody following and see what the options are? And I'm curious for everyone that attended or watched the forums, what their thoughts are on which of these seems most appealing.
And we can take it one issue at a time too. Like, does it make sense to do them both the same night, or should we do two separate events again? Something like that.
So I think given the number of people, we would probably be better serving the community if we had two separate nights.
What?
Because then we would.
Can you clarify what you mean by the number of people? Because at that point, it'll only be 2 candidates per race.
Okay, so I was under the impression that if it was after this, it would be the 2 candidates. So at this time in May, on May 11th or the 4th, we would be down to 2 candidates for the mayoral?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And for district 8 as well, Amanda.
I got you. Okay, well then I retract that statement. I think maybe we could spend the whole time with just those 4.
Yeah, I shared this by email, but I think this is Liz. I think having the District 8 and mayoral forum the same night, because then you're not making people go out 2 nights, for who they're going to vote for on the runoff ballot. I think that's important.
Yeah.
I am just wondering if we have ideas for alternate locations that aren't the cube then, but that, I guess like the AV setup there is ideal, and it's not as echoey as the gym was. So I'm just wondering if folks have ideas of other venues then, if we wanted to have both of them the same night, and it seems like they would have to be somewhere other than the cube.
So the question that we can find room on the cube calendar to have the event. The May 4th is just not an open day for us. There's already an event there at that same time. So happy to look at other dates, happy to find some spots, happy to send over what availability looks like. Really the only reason that we weren't after the 4th is that time is already booked.
Is there a reason why it has to be a Thursday, Mark? Could we do May 3rd?
No, I think I was just writing my options in a rush when I was trying to get to something else. I realized right before Jack started speaking that it's perfectly reasonable to find another date. I think we just need to make sure that whatever that other date is, we clear it with the Fair Election Funds folks to make sure that we're not in conflict with them. So probably the easiest, Jack, is if you send me the availability those first 2 weeks in May, I can then check with them and say, hey, which of these dates works best on your end or work for you, and then we can kind of go from there.
Yeah.
Honestly, part of it was I'm a big Star Wars nerd, so I was hoping to make it a May the 4th kind of event and try to add a Star Wars theme to it. But sounds like that's not in the the Force is not with us anymore.
So Mark, I will chat with my colleague Lawrence in the morning, and we will get that availability to you.
Thanks, Jack. My preference would be to do both races in the same night as well. I think it provides the most value with only 2 candidates in each race. I think it's manageable, and I think the Cube does offer the best stage virtual hybrid sort of arrangement that I know of that's easily accessible. So that'd be my vote as well. Does anyone have a different feeling than that, or can we proceed with the idea that sometime in one of those couple of weeks, assuming it works out with the MCA and with the city, that we'll do the election or do the form then?
Proceed. Yep. Agreed.
Okay. Cool. Thanks. The format's going to be a lot more kind of moderated Q&A. I think it's not going to be the kind of meet and greet aspect of it because we're focusing on just 1 hour. So if you are interested in getting questions submitted on behalf of your committees or just out of kind of individual interest, do feel free to send them our way, and we'll try to look for those themes, look to cover a lot of ground, and put together a good, strong question set for both races. Great, thanks everyone. Okay, and then the last thing that we wanted, oh, I'm sorry, I got one side ahead. Yes, recruitment. So we have to have the slate finalized and published so that we can make it public to the community on April 16th. Here's the slate, I believe, and I hope I haven't put anybody on the spot here, but I'm pretty sure I have confirmation from everyone that's eligible to be back on the board. Has said they'd like to be back here, and here's that slate again. So what we'd be looking to do now is see if there's any candidates that we'd like to add. Let me check on the date of our April meeting, because we've got some interviews scheduled, but I don't know that we'll have the well, yeah, it looks like it's on April 18th. What I'm getting at is, for anyone that's new to the board, the board won't have a chance to vote on that person as a board until the 18th of April. And so what that means, and we went through this last year a couple times, is that this will likely be the slate, and that new members will join the board in June rather than April. That way they can sort of just be sort of a functioning member of the board, and then their first election will be next May. So
Well,
I think
Jeff,
that makes sense, right? Yeah.
Well, we can always vote by email like we've done on some other issues.
We can. I mean, that strikes me as one that is worth waiting for a meeting, letting the person introduce themselves to the board, getting board questions answered, that kind of stuff. I think we're not the super intense about those sorts of things for anyone that wants to join the board, of course. But my suggestion would be to wait so that people have that opportunity. But we certainly don't have to do it that way.
I consider it your prerogative, so whichever way you want to go is fine with me.
How does the rest of the board feel about it?
I was just going to make a comment on Brad that, if depending on, I think the question is there a runoff in District 8, and is Brad in it? He would be off the slate. And then if something happens, then we could always nominate him and appoint him later too.
Yeah.
So I would.
Yeah. But about new board members, how does the board feel about voting on people that you might not necessarily have a chance to meet or interact with or ask questions of?
Is there an opportunity to either record like interviews or have some sort of written feedback that we can evaluate?
Yeah, we can record the interviews. Yeah.
I mean, as long as there's kind of something to refer to, I would be fine with that.
And I would too. I think the recommendation of the interviewees is more important than a 2-second conversation at a board meeting. That's my opinion.
Others?
Yeah, that sounds reasonable to me as well. This is Jamie, by the way.
Hi, Jamie.
Hi.
Yeah, I agree. I think that we should definitely have an opportunity to hear from them before just blindly voting on somebody's name.
Well, but I think that's what I want to clarify, Mandel. Are you comfortable with getting a recording of an interview and saying that's enough, or do you want the opportunity to vote on them in a meeting after you've interacted with them?
So I intend on volunteering to be a part of the interviews. I think I'm able to do that. So since I would be a part of those interviews, I would have the,
okay.
And if I wasn't, then I would be okay with the recording.
I mean, the other option is to proceed with sort of an email option. And then if anyone's like, I'm not quite sure, I need to ask some questions, we can always do that too. So why don't we do that? Why don't we plan on recording the interviews? I'll send them, or who's ever managing that particular interview can send them around to the board with a recommendation, and then we can hold a vote. And if they're voted on before the 16th, they can be added to the official slate. So that was the next thing that I was going to mention is outreach and interviews. Carol and I are currently the ones scheduled to conduct interviews. Mandel, I'm glad to have you join us. If you're able or interested in joining some of these interviews, please let me know. We'll work around schedules. It's not like it has to be at a fixed time or date or anything like that. It's all manageable. So if you're interested, please do let me know. And as always, when we're doing outreach, I think one of the most effective tool for recruiting new board members is the board. We all know people that are civic minded or engaged in the community and might make for a good board member. That's always really valuable, but we do want to make sure we're emphasizing getting diverse perspectives, be it from neighborhoods that aren't represented, demographic diversity, all that kind of representation is important to us here. So just be mindful of that as we do that outreach. I sent out a slate email so you can see a map of, for example, of where everybody that's currently on the board lives. And if you'd like, I can resend that. But just reach out to me if you want to be on part of the interviews. Okay.
I have one last
Yeah,
question.
sure.
I was just wondering, and maybe this is something that was already addressed in the email, but since there are different interviewers, would everybody be working from kind of a standard list of questions for each interviewee for the board, or how is that?
Yeah, that's a good question. So in that same slate document, I have some stock questions that we've used in the past.
Okay, got it.
Those are suggestions. I think feel free to ask different questions based on how the conversation's going, but it is a good starting point and it is a good common denominator for all of us to be operating from. I'll be sure to send that slate document around again, so it's handy.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, no thanks. Okay. All right, and then the last thing is this motion from the INC. This is something that Carol brought to us after attending a INC meeting. And essentially they're asking for our RNO's support of the Lincoln Street Community RNO's request that Dottie and other city agencies pause this I-25 Broadway interchange project. I won't read the full text here for you, but does everyone feel familiar with what the request is? That essentially INC is asking its voting members to join them in making this request. Does it need further clarification?
I think Carol sent around a lot of information, including videos, so it was pretty well explained.
Okay, good. As long as everyone feels good about it. So I think the question here is not just voting up or down, but whether this is well, I mean, yes, it is vote decision about whether we vote up or down. To me, I think the crux of the issue is this fit our mission? And if so, how? I think Liz made a good point that we are a member of INC and therefore a voting entity, and that in and of itself may be good reason to vote on this. But for me personally, I look at this and I don't see the fit with our mission, so I'm skeptical of voting on this, but more than happy to hear other perspectives.
Jeff, I agree with your position. Sorry, I'm not sure I talked over, but Jeff, I agree with your position. I think we're setting a precedent that's a slippery slope for us to go down. Because, you know, once we support one, why wouldn't we support others? And we have no idea. And I think it's probably just a better idea to abstain and not oppose it, but abstain.
So what I was going to ask is if you could elaborate a little bit on what you mean by it doesn't fit our mission.
Yeah, sure. So, you know, if I'll read I won't read it again, but at the top of the meeting every month, our mission, a forum for the residents living in Central Park to discuss and resolve issues, a network of communication, and a means of acting on matters of importance to the Central Park community as a whole. This seems outside of that scope.
Well, it seems, I mean, if you're going by the letter of the mission, then it doesn't seem to make sense to be a voting member of INC, but we are. And so I am wondering if, like, defining what does it mean if we vote on this motion that INC is asking us to vote on. It's just, we're the board of CPUN, and just saying as a board, this is how we voted, and, you know, up or down. And to me, that does not extend beyond, like, we're not speaking, like, I guess it's more like this is kind of like an inter-board vote, and it not voting as like the voice of Central Park. It's just voting as the board of Central Park United Neighbors. And to me, those are two different things. And I feel like what I'm hearing, Jeff and Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, you're saying that this would go against our mission because it would somehow be speaking for the community instead of letting the community speak. And I guess I see this as a completely different function of the board, where we're a member of this organization. They've asked us to take a position. And as board members, we can decide to, you know, either to support it or not support it. And that's kind of all it is that we would vote as a board. I know it kind of is splitting hairs, but I don't think it's a slippery slope. I do think that if we're not willing to vote on something we're being asked to vote on for an organization that we're a member of, we should ask, why are we a member of that organization? What's the point of it?
I'm happy to address that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm happy to address that. I think there's other things that INC does that we want to be a part of membership for. This isn't the only thing that they do. And I would agree that I think we need to be careful because, I mean, I appreciate your point of we're voting as members of the board and not speaking for the community, but I don't think that's how it will be heard or portrayed. I think it's most RNOs act differently, and there is nothing that prevents somebody from creating an RNO in our neighborhood or any part of our neighborhood that acts in a more traditional fashion, where they, you know, feel the desire to weigh in on issues like this on behalf of other RNOs. I tried looking at the information. To me, the minimum case for voting for something like this is that somebody who wants me to vote for it makes the case for how it fits with our mission. And I don't feel like that case has been made. Just being part of this organization to me is not in any way saying this is what we are as an organization where we weigh in on behalf of something on behalf of the community. And I don't think there's any way to avoid saying us voting on this is not us weighing in on behalf of the community. Like, that's how it's going to be seen to me.
And I think we have as a board, have a history of when we support things, we either have polled the community or surveyed the community on their input, and they expect that. I shouldn't say they. I think generally that's the precedent that we have set, and that's.
I guess, like, is there a precedent? Has CPUN actually voted on a motion from INC in the past? Like, is there an issue that we have either supported or not supported based on a vote of the board after taking? What issue is that?
I would have to go back and look, but over the years, 18 years on the board, there have been many occasions where the INC has come to us and asked us to support, and as a board, we have never chosen to support any of their initiatives.
I think Nicholas was asking the opposite. Have we ever chosen to? So we never voted on something that the INC asked us to vote on. I've not been a part of a vote where we did that I can recall.
No, we have been asked before, and we have never taken an active vote in any of the INC initiatives.
Well, I guess the question, my question is more, have we actually ever done, has CSUN or CPUN ever actually done what you're proposing, like polling people and finding out whether people want to support the INC motion?
Not specifically.
I don't think we've ever polled people about an INC motion because we usually don't have time. We have polled people on policies that we ended up supporting or not supporting, such as changes to the educational alignment. But, I think part of the precedent is we haven't necessarily felt inclined to get into the business of other neighborhoods. And that's, I think there needs to be a reason why our neighborhood wants to weigh in on another neighborhoods or another areas issues.
I think then I would like to have a more robust conversation about what is CPUN, like because it's not that we're getting involved in the issues of another neighborhood, it's that those neighborhood RNOs have asked for the support of other members of INC on like specific issues that they're dealing with as a city. And I think that, we kind of went around the block on this with like the I forget the name of the group, but it was the coalition of like homelessness, like issues.
Yeah, Unhoused Action Coalition.
Yeah, the Unhoused Action Coalition, and that there is a power in speaking collectively, and that if we as an organization just continue to abstain, it's like, what are we contributing? What are we contributing as a member? Like, it's not just like, what are we getting out of it? But what are we contributing to the support of other neighborhoods? Or, I mean, we could do an up and down vote and just see like, would we actually support this or not? I honestly like hearing this, like, I don't know if it would pass, but I do think it's not just a question of what are we getting out of INC, but it's like, what are we contributing as an organization that's a member of it? Because what I don't understand, like being part of an organization that's called Inter-Neighborhood Cooperation, and that part of the mission of that organization that we're a member of is to actually support or weigh in on issues in other neighborhoods. But that's something that folks seem to be kind of like, the disposition is not to do that. And so it really makes me question, why are we part of that organization then, other than just kind of being looky-loos and seeing what's going on?
So Liz, I think that it's a question of what is our lane. And I think we have, through history, decided that our lane is matters that relate to Central Park. Just like we would probably, not take kindly to another organization stepping in and saying, hey, this is how we want you to do things in Central Park. I don't think it is our place to be telling anybody else how business should operate in their neighborhood. Our lane is
the neighborhoods are asking us to weigh in.
Well, hold on.
Like, which
Liz,
is
can I
quite
clarify
different.
something?
Yeah.
Liz, can I clarify something? I don't agree with you that the neighborhoods are necessarily asking, because I don't agree with you that the other RNOs are run the way we are, where they ask their neighborhood. And that's the hard part for me of backing another group in another area, is I don't have any idea if they talk to their neighbors or if it's 8 people who decided to get together and make a motion. I don't know anything about these groups. They haven't come to us. They've done it through INC. And, frankly, there's a lot of history, in my view, of INC not speaking for the neighborhoods or the residents and just speaking for whoever's on their board. And that's my concern about getting involved in some of this stuff, is like, I don't know what kind of outreach they've ever also done in their areas to know if their residents even agree with them. Because I've seen RNOs do things that were in conflict with their residents, and regularly, and that concerns me.
I would agree with you, Mark, that I think one of the shortcomings of the RNO ordinance is that it is like that it's so open that RNOs like can be like pretty unrepresentative. I mean, also you can look at our board also like unrepresentative of like their own communities, you know,
Right.
often
Yeah.
more wealthier, older than the communities they claim to represent. But I think that when we say we decided, you know, the board is an ever evolving group of people. And so I think that it's worth revisiting, or I think that it's worth having this discussion or continuing this discussion about what are we doing? Like,
I
or
agree.
what, like, how do we see this? And I think it's a pity that Carol's not here since she's the representative for CPUN on INC, who might be able to answer some of the questions about, you know, have they provided information on how like West Wash Park and Lincoln Park RNOs or Lincoln Street RNO like actually like came to the decision to ask for this motion. So I guess like I agree we don't have enough information now on this specific issue, partly because somebody who has some of the information isn't here. But I also think that seeing the decision of like whether the discussion of whether this aligns with our mission or not, to me, I think is an evolving one and not a monolith. And so I just want to put that out there.
Yeah, if I can, I think this is an evolving organization. It can change over time, but we should have those conversations and reach a consensus before doing something or voting on something where there's clear conflict within the board or different perspectives within the board about how it fits. So we should have that conversation before we vote. I think the other thing that I want to say is that with regard to our role in INC, I would, you know, to me, the most important thing that we get out of INC and is the same thing that we contribute to INC, which is a perspective. It is a communication outlet. It is a sharing of ideas. I don't think that we've always at CPUN tried, and not always successfully, but tried to build bridges to other neighborhoods with programming and events and awareness. And the INC is a great way to help get the word out. And I think thanks in large part to Carol, we've maintained those lines of communication. So it's not just what do we get? I think we're active participants in it as well. And I think there is a role for us as an INC member that also fits with our mission. So I don't think abstaining from this raises the issue of why we're in it at all.
But can I just say, I think that they're asking for our opinion on this, and we're not willing to give it. And it does confuse me why we're part of a cooperation at all when we don't feel like we can cooperate in that way. So it is a really, I mean, this is, you know, Carol spent a lot of time attending those meetings, and this is definitely something we need to address, because it doesn't make any sense to me that we can't offer as a neighborhood organization, offer our votes, just our vote, like even if it's a split vote, on the issues that are being presented around other neighborhoods in the city. It just seems like we're saying your problems are yours and ours are ours, and it's very sort of exclusive.
Correct, we're staying in our lane.
Well, then we shouldn't be a part of the INC.
I think that this is, I'm glad that this has come up, because it shows that we do need to look at things a little differently. And as I look at the way things are now, and even as this was coming up, I was like, yeah, typically what we do is we survey the community to see what the community thinks before we come forward with any kind of statement or vote of support or come against whatever that happens to be. I do think that because this has come up and it's shown that there is sort of a division, disagreement about where we should take a stance on this. I think that we need to, maybe we don't on this particular on this situation make a vote on it, but we also do need to decide what is our role going to be in INC. If things come up, how are we going to handle that in the future? So, as you guys saw in my email, I'm in support of it, so I would be voting for it. But I do understand the concerns that we have this mission that we're supposed to be adhering to, and we might not have the time, or we don't necessarily have the time to poll the community. But I don't want to just leave it at that. I do think that we should consider what our role is going to be with the INC.
I think that's a great discussion to have too. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. Again, I think it's always an important conversation for the board to be having is what does it want to be about? What does it want to spend its time on? And I just would suggest that we have that conversation, reach a shared understanding before voting. That's all.
Yeah, I just wanted to add one thing on this specific issue, and then just kind of like pose a question, a more open-ended question for folks to consider. The specific thing, it seems like something that would be in alignment with our mission is for Carol to get information from those RNOs about the specific issue that we can then share out with the community, like, hey, this is going on in another neighborhood. If you're concerned or have thoughts about highway expansion and how the city engages community and addresses community concerns, here's how you can get involved. I would be very happy to share out that information if we can get it, and then we can actually kind of gauge, are people interested in this? The other kind of just more open-ended question I would like pose because I don't want this to be the end of the conversation, is just when you say like we're staying in our lane, there's a very fine line between like staying in our lane and silence. And I think an organization like INC at its best, or at its kind of theoretically, what it's supposed to do is break down those boundaries. And so I think just thinking very carefully about what we mean when we talk about what's our lane, and how that either does or does not actually like serve the needs of neighborhoods in our city.
I'd say,
Liz, I think your suggestion is a good one. I think the only question might be the deadline.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure.
It's the 29th, Jeff.
Okay, yeah, so we would have to turn that around quite quickly, but and Carol's on vacation this week.
Well,
but your
I'm not meaning, yeah, I'm not meaning that like that we would be able to get the information from the community in time to be able to vote on it, but I do think it's incumbent on us to share the information with the community, and whether people individually want to get involved, or if one of our committees wants to kind of explore the issue further beyond just this like motion for INC, like it's useful information.
Yeah, agreed. That makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Well, look, this is a topic, Liz cited the Unhoused Action Coalition. This is a topic that we have circled back to more than once over the last year and a half. It's obviously something that needs a more fully fleshed out conversation. I think we're getting close to the time of year when that makes sense to do, with a new board year coming up. And so I'm fully supportive of however that needs to be organized, really kind of hashing some of that out for the next board year and beyond.
Agreed. Thank you.
Brian, do you want to run through the treasury slide? Oh, excuse me, I don't want to, do we want to vote on this tonight? Or do we think should we hold off on that? I don't want to presume anything there. We can take a up and down vote.
So
I think based on our bylaws, we don't have consensus. So I would say we've done what our, you know, I would say
vote on whether we should vote on it.
I'm happy to have a vote. We have to mark excuse me, Brian, what's the threshold again? It's 2/3.
Yeah.
So we need, how many board members do we have? 8. That's not easy, 2/3 vote, but yes, we can take a vote. So I'll raise a motion to vote on participating in this motion from INC.
Second it. Second.
Who's in favor of supporting the request? I see
Me,
Liz,
Jamie. Yep.
Jamie and Liz. Anyone else? I just want to make sure I got the hands up.
Let me make sure I understand. We're voting on whether or not we are going to take a vote on this?
No, this is the vote to either join, to vote on whether to say yes to this request or to say to not participate or to abstain.
Okay.
Yeah, let me clarify that. So yeah, what we're voting on here is this request has been made from us. We can either say yes, and we will support this request, or we will not, either no or an abstention.
Okay, I understand.
So I got 2 yeses and no's.
Mandel's raising his hand.
Yes, actually.
Yeah.
You're a yes, Mandel? and so that's 3 yeses, and then I think that leaves us with, let's just count the no's. I'm a no.
I'm a no.
Can't find the buttons for raising hands, but I'm a no.
Okay, so that's 5. So the motion does not pass. So we will not support this request.
But I think everybody agrees we will continue the discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, then we'll go to the treasury slide.
Yeah,
Brian,
yeah, not much of an update other than Mark saved us, about $40 on the bike racks. So we made $40 on putting bike racks out there. The other thing, we did pay our Nation Builder renewal. So our reserve is at about $8,000. And we do have one pending expenditure that Mark and I are working on, which is the co-sponsorship of the welcome bags. And so that will be coming through for the, sometime within the next month. So that's it.
I've actually got an update on that if we want to try to resolve it tonight. The invoice that we were originally voted on for, I think it was authorizing $900, apparently did not include the cost of shipping the bags to us. So the true cost is a little over $1,000. Brian, do you know what the exact amount is?
It was $1,053.
Yeah, so I don't know if we want to vote on that tonight or if we want to go by email, but it would be an additional $150 for the bags that have already been ordered and delivered.
Okay.
Is anybody opposed to us making that?
So does that mean you would send the bags back then?
No, I think it means that we would probably stick the CPBA with the extra cost and they'd be grumpy with us.
Yeah, I'm good.
Or that I would probably pay it out of my own pocket.
Does anyone oppose the additional $100 and some odd fee for the bags?
No.
No. Okay,
All right,
Thank you.
All
that's it,
right.
Jeff.
okay. Anything else anybody wants to bring up before we go? We're a little over time.
I'll bring up something just real quick. I know everybody wants to go, but I'm a little bit concerned about the transition as you leave out, Jeff, like what that's going to look like for having somebody step in. What's the idea there, and when in May are you leaving?
Yeah, so good question. I intend to make the May annual forum the sort of my last day. After that, I'll be gone. I am talking to one board member. I don't want to say who without their permission about the role, and they've expressed an interest. So I feel reasonably confident that we're on good footing there. The executive committee is aware of who I've spoken to about the role, and they've all been supportive in my conversations with them. So I think we're on a relatively stable track as we move through this. Does that answer your question, Mandel? I just don't want to put anybody on the spot.
Yeah, I'm good with that. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. Well, thanks, everybody. Have a good evening.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.